My experience is the totality of the up is much greater than the correction. And I think this cycle is proving it too.
Welcome to Multifamily Insights. I'm your host, John Casman, and I want to thank you for joining us for another great episode. If you are enjoying this show and getting some great value for your investing goals, let us hear about it and leave some honest feedback with a rating and review. It helps us, it helps other investors find this show for their own investing goals. And if you haven't done so already, or this is your first time listening, be sure to hit that follow or subscribe button so you don't miss an episode. Now, we got a great show today. We're going to be talking to Arn Cenedella. They say you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. So if you want to grow as a multifamily investor, you have to spend more time with other multifamily investors. And an easy way to do that is to join our apartment investing mastermind group today. Just go to casmancapital.com and click on the mastermind button. Now, as a part of this group, you'll get access to expert trainings, group coaching calls, industry news and updates, as well as all of our webinars and workshops, including our 3-hour workshop on raising capital. Again, if you want to be around other multifamily investors that can help you scale your portfolio today and grow your network, make sure you're a part of the Apartment Investing Mastermind. Just go to casmancapital.com and click on the Mastermind button today. Arn Cenedella is a real estate broker and investor with over 45 years of experience in the real estate industry. Now, Arn joined Arn joined Cenedella and Company, his family's residential and investment brokerage firm located in California back in 1978. Over a 36-year period, Arn had success as a broker. He also built a single-family rental portfolio, and during this period, Arn helped many investors build their own rental portfolios. Since then, he has founded Spark Investment Group in 2020 as he transitioned from single-family rentals into multifamily. Let's welcome to the show, Arn Cenedella.
Hey, John, thanks for having me on the show. Great to be able to sit down and chat with you a little bit, and hopefully, we can provide some value to your listeners.
Absolutely, Arn. It's great to have you on the show. I went over your bio at a very high level. Why don't you take 2 minutes and fill in some of those gaps?
Yeah, so yeah, I had no grand plan to get into real estate. Like a lot of American kids, was taught go to college, or I mean, go to school, work hard, go to college. I did that, went all the way to grad school, and then kind of decided academia wasn't for me. Called my dad, said I wanted to come back to the Bay Area. And he said, well, come on out, get your license, and I'll put you to work. He had a residential brokerage business in Menlo Park in Palo Alto, California, kind of Silicon Valley. And I've been doing real estate ever since. And about 4.5 years ago, transitioned to multifamily after a cross country move to Greenville, South Carolina, where I've now been here about 10 years.
I love it. I love it. Thanks for giving us that background. So you started off, you went off into the academia world, getting your education, and realized that's not really what you wanted to do. He came home, your dad put you to work through his brokerage, you were able to drive success there. And then, more recently, you transitioned into multifamily and move into Greenville. First of all, with so much experience in real estate, I know people talk about cycles and where things are. You've seen a lot in a day. Talk to us about the way you look at the market and market cycles at a high level.
Well, it's a great question, and certainly it's apropos for the current situation. So, in my experience, typically you kind of have 10-year cycles. Some people talk about 18-year cycles, which are really kind of like two 10-year cycles. I kind of see it as 10-year cycle, and in my experience, generally in real estate, you have five, six, seven pretty good boom years, let's call it, property values raising, rents increasing, et cetera. And then there's usually kind of a natural and logical slight correction. And I think for multifamily, the last year or two has been that little correction. But my experience is the totality of the up is much greater than the correction. And I think this cycle is proving it too. And then after a little bit, a year or two of turbulence, you kind of hit a plateau. And then is all that does is set the floor for the next run up. And I think we're pretty much at the floor now. And I think the stage is being set for growth over the next 5, 7 years. I'd be optimistic long term.
So you had, 30 plus years in the residential space, crushing it, right? For all that time. Why does someone with that much experience in single family make the transition to multifamily?
Yeah, I've been asked that a lot. And I would say two reasons primarily. Number one, multifamily generally does a little bit better providing cash flow than single family. Number two, we all know there's a major housing affordability issue in this country, and really apartments and or mobile homes are going to be the most affordable housing available to most Americans. So I see a huge demand with a limited supply. And personally, I don't know that we're ever going to solve the housing shortage. I don't think we're going to solve the affordable housing shortage. We can make gains and progress. But so by investing in multifamily, you have high demand, uh, very limited new inventory. Most new inventory is luxury Class A apartments, which by definition are not affordable. Those rents are $3,000, $4,000. Sorry, not affordable to most people. So housing affordability, big demand. And then the third is as I've gotten older, uh, I've kind of come to realize that I have a certain skill set and I enjoy doing certain things that I'm good at. And then there are other activities that maybe I don't enjoy as much or I'm not as good at. And so by moving to multifamily, it opens up the opportunity to partner with individuals who have skill sets that are complementary to you, where the single family investing tends to be more a solitary experience. So I really do like the partnership that multifamily provides. I love working with my partners. And frankly, they handle the stuff I don't like and they allow me to do what I like and what I think I do best. So it's a really good mix. And that's the third reason I went to multifamily.
No, I appreciate you sharing that, right? Those three reasons you made that transition from single family to multifamily. One, increased cash flow. Two, you like the trends when it came to affordable housing. Multifamily provided a nice opportunity to follow all those trends and solve a problem that we face as a nation. And then the third thing was the partnership opportunities. With single family homes, there just typically isn't enough money to go around to have partners to split it and have it be worthwhile. But with multifamily, you can absolutely partner up, align with somebody who has maybe a complementary skill set, or they're doing things or bring something to the table that you don't enjoy doing. So that partnership opportunity is really a great way to thrive and succeed as a multifamily investor. You talked about making that transition from California to Greenville, South Carolina. Talk to us about that as well. Was that specifically for multifamily, or was there something else going on in your life at the time?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I recently turned 70, moved to South Carolina when I was 60, and theoretically I was going to retire. So really the move was more about lifestyle. Both Laura and I are lifetime kind of San Francisco Bay Area residents. Laura had a big Silicon Valley career at Intel, Visa, and Intuit. And while the Bay Area is a great place, it's awfully fast paced, it's awfully expensive. So we wanted kind of a little bit more relaxed lifestyle. And then, of course, when I got to Greenville, South Carolina, everything looked inexpensive. So, I started buying rentals. And through some of that activity, I met a guy here called Brian Welsh who runs a property management company, and we developed a friendship. And it took me about a year and a half of kind of educating him and courting him, let's call it, about the benefits of multifamily. He was a single family guy, single family property manager, did well. And I kept kind of saying, hey, Brian, look, we really got to think about this multifamily stuff. And finally, we found a property we both liked. He's kind of the operational guy, I'm kind of the hunter. Uh, so, kind of the falling into multifamily, there wasn't any grand plan. We moved here for a lifestyle change, and it's all worked out great. And of course, the other thing is The definition of retirement has changed, and I think uh, as you get older, you still need to be productive. I think humans have a deep need to be productive, and you have value in experience and expertise. And so, if you can find a way to help others with that, also be compensated and kind of add to the totality of your life, you're a happy camper, or at least I am. So, I enjoy what I do. Yeah.
I love that. First of all, happy belated birthday. Happy belated 70th birthday. And I want to touch on that because, I think most people, they want to get into real estate to have more time for the things they love with the people they love, right? There's a whole fire community, financially independent, retire early. They want to get out of this day job, right? And just be retired. You mentioned, redefining retirement. What does retirement mean to you?
Well, well, let's see. How should I say this diplomatically? I would say maybe it's wanting to work as opposed to having to work, if that makes sense, right? So retirement, I think, is about options. And I play a lot of golf, but I also spend a lot of time on real estate and I enjoy both. So I think retirement is having options to kind of lead the life you want as opposed to having sort of a really focused effort on making it financially. Uh, I came from Silicon Valley and a lot of my buddies were in tech. They made a lot of money, but they also worked 70, 80 hours a week. So they missed their kids' little league games, the piano recitals. So retirement to me is kind of freedom, time freedom, and no stress about financial obligations, that you have enough income streams that you can support your lifestyle comfortably.
You mentioned, just kind of your age and where you're at right now and what retirement means to you. Where do you get the energy? Where do you get the energy to do all these things and be so active?
Well, when you like what you do, you always have energy for it, right? You have less energy for the things you don't like to do. Um, just kind of the way it is. So I'm kind of a big fitness guy, so I have a routine. I get up and have 2 cups of coffee, 2 pieces of toast, and head to the gym and or the rec center, which is also a social environment for me. It's a great center here in Greenville. And that kind of gets me going. And I think it just kind of gets the engine going. And then you can ride out. Though I'll tell you, 9 p.m., I'm ready for bed. And, my head hits the pillow and I'm sleeping. So I'm more a morning person than a night owl.
I love the insight though, right? Because I think most people are projecting what their later years are going to be like, and you're giving us a really good glimpse of how you can control that and manifest it, right? Work hard now, take those earnings, but don't just retire and stop, right? Find something you enjoy doing, figure out the things you don't enjoy doing, and figure out how to offset that. In your world, you've been able to find partners who will be able to do the things that you don't enjoy. You're able to go hunt for deals and opportunities, build these partnerships and grow a portfolio that allows you flexibility, but you're not just sitting around, waiting. Like you're over here still being very active. And that's a lifestyle I think many people would aspire to. So I appreciate you sharing a little bit more insight of how you're able to manage that today. Let's talk more about the portfolio, right? So we mentioned that, about 4 years ago, you transitioned into multifamily. Give our listeners kind of a sense of where that portfolio sits today.
So GP, I'm a GP partner, probably in about 1,000 units, primarily in the Southeast, the Carolinas. Um, both North and South Carolina. And I would say I'm kind of lead sponsor on about 300 units here in Greenville, South Carolina, where Brian, my partner, and I both live. And we tend to like the sub 100 unit properties, and that maybe goes contrary to conventional wisdom. But in our experience, the smaller properties, you're able to get in, get control, and turn them around more quickly. Where if you have a 300 unit value add, it's going to take you some time to kind of really turn that ship around. So we actually appreciate the smaller units. We get in, we get them tuned up. It takes us maybe 12 to 18 months. Now they're kind of running on autopilot. And by autopilot, I don't mean you forget about them, but you've tuned them up. They're running efficiently. They're cash flowing. You're paying distributions. And so we have a variety of smaller assets, though at one point we did co-sponsor 281 units here in Greenville, but our real niche is the smaller. The other thing we've been after the last year or two is most of your listeners understand uh, multifamily transaction volume has gone down, that there's been a gap between seller expectations and buyer realities with debt. And it's kind of understandable if I were trying to buy a building today that somebody bought 5 years ago, they probably got debt at 4.5, and I got to pay 6.5 or 6, and the NOI is the same. So the property's worth more to the existing owner than it would be to me, the new buyer. Hence, there's a delta, no transaction. So what we've actually been after lately is who's the most motivated seller in today's market? And I would submit it's a builder. Builders build to sell, they take their profit and they move on to the next deal. They're typically not long-term hold, buy and hold and build and hold investors. So we've been going after smaller kind of duplex, let's call them build to rent communities, though we're not involved in the development. Basically, the builder gets the units built. When the certificate of occupancy, the final building permit's issued, we close. So our last three transactions have actually been on new duplex communities here in Greenville County. And we think we're buying them at an attractive basis. Uh, Residents clearly love to live in a home that's never been lived in. And in Greenville, most of the existing apartment stock was built in the 70s. So we're now talking 50 years old. And trust me, at 70, I know there's a few aches and pains. It's no different with a 50-year-old building. So we really like the new product as a long-term investment, figuring we're going to have kind of low maintenance, low OpEx for about 10 years. So those are the last couple of deals we've purchased. And so it's kind of a smattering. Uh, we're very geographically uh, limited. We'll really only do Greenville County or slightly outside. The region might be called the upstate of South Carolina. So we only operate assets really in our home market, which I think is important. One, you're there, you have real boots on the ground, you have eye on the product, you know the rental market, you know what's going on in your community. So we really focus narrowly on our geographic market, but within that market, we'll kind of buy anything. We'll buy value add, we'll buy new. We don't care. It's more just the geography that matters to us.
I love what you just gave. I mean, you really just gave a master class of how to identify opportunities. The first thing you talked about was what you just ended on, right? Being geographically bound. And that's important because you need to know where you're looking. The second thing is, what are you looking for? And today you say you're finding more opportunities where you're working with that developer, finding those deals that are getting ready to come online. Once that certificate of occupancy is there, you're coming in as a buyer, you got a new asset, you're going to have low expenses for a decade, and you can have a longer term approach with your business plan. The takeaway I want our listeners to have is, first of all, be really clear about what your buy box is. And in order to develop your buy box, in order to develop your buy box, you have to understand what you do well. You know, for you and your partner, you're both in that market. You're in Greenville. You mentioned that he managed single family homes. You have teams, you have your crew there. So you have a competitive advantage in that market. I could send you a deal in Atlanta and it might be a killer deal, but you no longer have a competitive advantage, right? So you're focused on what you do really well, which in that case is in your backyard. The second thing is you are flexible on the kind of deal you do, whether it's value add, whether it is, a brand new development, whether it's a smaller deal, larger deal. You have some flexibility, but you do have a bread and butter, right? You talked about those sub 100 unit deals. That's what you like. They're easier to turn, easier to kind of turn around the whole property. And it's great to know what your sweet spot is. And the reason this is important is when you are talking to brokers, a broker knows exactly the kind of deal you're looking for. What you just described, if a deal came across my desk and I saw that it was in Greenville, South Carolina, and I saw it was 50 units or 60 units, and it was a value add deal, this is exactly the kind of deal Arm would do. And I know I can send it to you and you're probably going to take it, right? The mistake so many new investors make is they're not clear on what they're looking for. They say, "Oh, I want a value add deal, 50 units and up or 25 units and up. Market doesn't really count or doesn't really matter. I'm flexible." You're so flexible, you don't know what you're looking for. So a broker can't help you, and a broker is not going to keep you top of mind or think about you because they have no clue what you actually want because you haven't taken the time to get really clear on what you really like. So the clearer you are on what you're looking for, the easier it's going to be for you to find it. Or really appreciate you going into detail there and sharing what you're working on now. Take me behind the scenes about the partnership, right? You mentioned you're more of the hunter. Your partner does more operations. Given kind of the market dynamics and the changes that have taken place over the last couple of years, what adjustments have you all had to make as a team to ensure your deals are successful?
Yeah, so we have one third partner, Dan, who I actually met at a best ever conference. So for your listeners who are interested in partnering and kind of making headway, these conferences do work. And Dan's a Bay Area expat guy. Now lives up in Raleigh, Durham, North Carolina, which is about 3 hours from me. So Brian and I are real estate guys. We're real estate schmoes. We can use the calculator, we can underwrite, but we're not really the financial brain. And Dan had training as a CFO for about 30 years. And as we started to develop more deals, uh, we found a need. We needed greater support on kind of the accounting and bookkeeping and underwriting side of the business. So we brought him in. And I may not have answered your question, but if you could repeat it, I'll try again. But I just
Yeah,
wanted to mention we have the
yeah.
third
So you
partner.
got your
Yeah.
third partner, Dan. So we talked about just how you have kind of adjusted your approach and the business plan, the execution of the operations to make sure these deals are still performing.
Yeah. And so it's interesting. Uh, in my experience, the hunter, the deal finder is always the one who's saying, let's go, guys, climb up that hill. This is great. Love it. Let's do it. And of course, you need the yin with the yang. You need somebody to kind of say, well, hold on, Arn. Let's think about this. And so Brian and Dan are kind of the brake. I'm kind of the engine. Uh, Dan looks at it from a very numerical point of view. Brian looks at it from a very practical, operational point of view. How are we actually going to run this asset and what's it going to cost and what are we going to be able to do? Dan really looks at the numbers where I'm almost kind of more a qualitative investor where I look for quality property, quality locations, and uh, you kind of get a vibe, you get a sense when you see it, and this has been developed over decades, but all investors will start to be able to get a vibe on a certain property. So between the three of us, we all have significant real estate experience as individuals. We all have our own portfolios. Um, and as frustrating as it may be when they tell me no, because I like to go, I've learned to respect their judgment. And so now basically what it is unless all three of us say yes, the answer is no. And so we got this good system of checks and balances. And so far, All our deals are doing above pro forma. The other thing, my father taught me the real estate business, and he was born in 1921. So he lived through the Depression, fought in World War II, and somebody of that vintage has a total different perspective than someone my age or even your age. So we only get fixed rate debt. We don't over leverage. We build in the deal with ample cash reserves, and we know how to operate this kind of asset. And so when you have that kind of fundamental approach, I think you can go into real estate in a prudent manner, no matter what the cycle is. The way I describe it is we try to hit line drive base hits, not grand slams, because when you swing for the fences, you may strike out. I don't want to strike out. And particularly when you're handling other people's money, there's a big responsibility there. So we try to build in a little security in the deals, maybe give up a little bit of the upside, but our distributions go out on like clockwork, and we've had no problems across our portfolio. So knock on wood, I'm thankful for that.
All right, I appreciate you sharing that, right? You just talked about how to mitigate the risk and mitigate those variables in the deal. So, one, you talked about using fixed interest rate debt on your properties, having proper cash reserves, make sure you're not over leveraged, and then also making sure that you have the experience and the track record and knowledge to actually operate the asset. So, you're not just guessing and doing new things. I know you mentioned that you are flexible on the kind of deal, whether it's value add or new construction or whatever. But the truth is, you want to make sure that you know how to execute that prior to getting into the deal. And those are great ways to mitigate the risk when it comes to doing a new deal. You mentioned leverage just for parameters. What do you kind of use for your threshold as far as how much leverage you'll take on a deal?
Yeah, so I think our max leverage on any deal was 75%. And that we got 3.85% fixed rate debt for 5 years. So we're good. We got another 2 years to go, and it looks like rates are coming down. Uh, but honestly, recently, on the last couple of our deals, we've had to pay about 7% from commercial banks or credit local credit unions. And on those deals, we're putting like 40, 45% down to get them to be self-supporting. So the leverage on them is maybe 55, 60. uh, these loans have no prepay, so when rates drop, we'll be able to exit and get the advantage and maybe increase leverage a little bit. But I would say anytime you start getting over 70% leverage, you're getting into the caution zone. And so I would say like 65, 70% leverage is kind of the sweet spot. And again, by doing so, you may give up a little bit of the upside, but you protect so much more on the downside. For me, the trade-off is worth it. And of course, this is a point for all investors. They have to determine their own kind of risk reward profile. If you want to be a little more aggressive, nothing wrong with that. But just understand you increase the risk a little bit, and you just have to make sure you're okay with that. And each of us has a different way of looking at it. And perhaps since I'm older, I have a little less tolerance for risk because if I make a mistake, I have less time to recover from. Where if somebody's 25 starting their professional career, maybe they could be a little more aggressive because they've got lots of runway and they've got a big income coming in. So everybody's got to pay attention to that for themselves.
I love that. And I appreciate you giving a little context on the back end because it's helpful for investors to just think through their own risk tolerance and risk profile. I will go back to the point though, if you are working with other investors, you have to keep them in mind. So it's one thing if you may have a long runway, but some of those investors may be kind of relying on it. So just kind of keep that in mind as you're looking at deals and opportunities. Arn, what's next for you right now? When you look at kind of the next couple of years, what kind of deals are you looking at? Where do you see your business going?
Yeah. So I think we'd like to just kind of keep doing more of the same. Um, I don't have any grand plan to build some big syndication company. Uh, Pretty well set on our geographic focus. There's maybe a population of 1 million people here. Uh, and so it's not like there's 40 deals that come on the market every month. So that's going to limit deal flow a little bit. Uh, so I think for us, we just keep doing 2, 3 solid deals a year. Maybe we could improve our efficiency on the back end. And by the back end, I mean sending out monthly communications. We have a portal and the distribution system works great. There's no problem there. But there's kind of a lot of back office activities that maybe we could improve and make a little more efficient and take less of our time. And so I think there'll be some focus there. And then we just continue to look for deals that make sense and keep communicating, performing for our investors.
I love it. Listen, if you want to connect with Arn, you can go to investwithspark.com. Again, that's investwithspark.com. Right now, we're going to transition to our round of insights. Arn, give me a failure or an apparent failure that set you up for later success.
Yeah, so most people, if they could recollect back to the residential real estate market in 2004, 2005, 2006, at least in the San Francisco Bay Area, it was off the hook gangbusters. Uh, so my brokerage income was going up, up, up. And I ended up buying a condo on the big island of Hawaii. And I pro formed it out. I would rent it for X dollars a night rent. It would be rented X days a month. So I had that all perfectly dialed in. And it would have been a small negative cash flow, but based on what I was making, it would have been no problem. And of course, I closed December 2007. And then, of course, the Great Recession financial crisis hits and my income drops. People weren't traveling. So that deal I probably lost $100,000 on, but it's okay. It was a lesson well learned. One of the things I always say is all investors are going to make mistakes. Just make sure the mistake isn't mortal, that you live to fight another day and then you learn. So that was a lesson that I needed to learn about. Things could be booming now, but anytime you make a decision, you need to reflect. We call it stress test. What happens if something goes wrong? And in that case, I didn't do that. And I paid the price. It was my own deal. I'm a big boy and I take responsibility for my decisions, but it was a lesson well learned for me.
Give me a digital or mobile resource you recommend for your business.
For me, my cell phone is kind of everything. So I do a lot of business on my phone, a lot of emailing and so forth. So to me, my cell phone is probably my best tech tool that I use. So that would be my answer.
Give me the book you've recommended or gifted the most in the last year.
It would be for investor people want to get into multifamily, the best ever syndication book by Joe Fairless and Theo Hicks. It's kind of a to Z manual, gives you a lot of information and gives you a good base of knowledge.
Love it. Great book there. All right. Give me a daily habit that helps you stay focused on your goals.
Yeah, we kind of talked about it. And for me, it's kind of going down to the rec center, getting a good workout in. One, it helps physical health, but the other thing it does for me, it reduces stress. If I'm stressing about something or concerned about something, just the act of getting your body moving, getting the blood pumping, getting the oxygen in and out of your body tends to center me and kind of gets me focused. It also increases my optimism and feeling of well-being, which of course then allows you to go out and do what you got to do on the work day.
Give me your number one insight for investing long-term.
So I would say live below your means. So if you can live on 80 to 85% of your income, you have a delta of 10 or 15%. Get that delta, invest it. And obviously, we believe real estate's a great thing to invest in, but uh, invest that money long term. You'll create financial freedom, and you'll have opportunities later on to kind of just live the life the way you want to do that. So live below your means, invest the difference.
I love it, man. All right, you are in Greenville. Give us your favorite place to grab a bite to eat.
Uh, my favorite place is a place called Urban Wren. It's kind of a small plates restaurant, fabulous. Greenville is definitely a foodie town. It's almost as good as Charleston, and we all know Charleston's world class, but Urban Wren in downtown Greenville.
All right, sounds like a great option. Arn, really enjoyed hearing more about your story, coming up and going back to school, getting your education, deciding you wanted to go home, work with your family in that business, being a residential broker, investor for 36 years, making that transition into multifamily, moving to Greenville, South Carolina, and talk to us about how you've been able to build this portfolio of over 1,000 units as a general partner, as well as being a limited partner on some deals as well. A couple standouts to me is being really clear about your buy box. The clearer you are about what you're looking for, the easier it's going to be to find it. It's also going to be much easier to execute and have success, but also to mitigate those risks. Make sure you can take out as much risk as possible. You're doing that through using low leverage. Make sure you're using fixed debt. Make sure that you have the experience and the knowledge to execute the business plan and making sure that you've got the right team around you. So, really appreciate you sharing how you've been able to drive success in your own business, as well as redefining what retirement means and looks like. So, really powerful story. Loved hearing all that, Arn. Thank you for sharing it. And for those who do want to connect with you and learn more about your company, they can go to investwithspark.com. Arn, thanks again for being a great guest and coming on Multifamily Insights. We look forward to staying in touch with you, and I hope you have a great day.